All right. Well, as people start to join, I'm going to go ahead and kick us off at least with our safety minute, our tech minute, and our fundamental. So, safety minute for today is seasonal allergy tips. As starts to get warmer outside, at least down here in the south, it's starting to warm up. Um, there are some tips that we can take into consideration for seasonal allergies. More than half of the people in the US indicate they have reactions to one or more allergens. So, first thing you want to do is reduce your exposure to allergy triggers, find out what those are, and then reduce anything that kind of triggers those allergies. Take extra steps when pollen counts are high. Sometimes pollen counts can be found in your weather apps. Keep indoor air clean. So if you have like an air filter, that would help. Try an over-the-counter remedy such as a decongestion or nasal spray. Rinse your sinuses. Well, there's already try an over-the-counter remedy, but when home remedies aren't enough, see your doctor. So that's our safety minute for this morning. Now we have an internet or tech safety minute, and for those of us who are parents, here are some 10 tips that you can use to kind of keep your children safe on the internet. So first is don't block all access to technology. Help your children learn how to use tech safely and positively. Take an interest in your child's favorite apps or sites, co-view or co-create at times. Third one is be the parent, you're in charge, set boundaries, and consider using filtering software. The fourth one is to create a family media agreement with tech-free zones such as cars, bedrooms, and meals. So those are the zones in your house or outside your house where there is no tech happening. Number 5 is teach your child what personal information they should not reveal online. Number 6 is help your child learn to filter information online and navigate fact from fiction. Number 7 is navigate digital dilemmas with your child. Avoid using devices as rewards or punishments. 8 is balance screen time and screen time at home. 9 is don't support your child to sign up for sites with age restrictions if they're underage. And then finally, 10, learn more, explore reliable resources for parents so you can educate yourself. I have 7 nieces and nephews, and the youngest one is 2 years old, and she is already utilizing Facebook Messenger and the camera, so that could be helpful in a lot of different ways. I'll definitely be sending my sister that information. So the fundamental of the week is bring it every day. And this is all about having a passion for what you do and being fully engaged. Make the most of each day and approach every task with energy, focus, purpose, and enthusiasm. There are no traffic jams along the extra mile. That's by Roger Staubach. All right, so we got through our culture moments. Now we'll go ahead and kick off our water cooler. So welcome everyone to our March water cooler. Happy St. Patrick's Day. For those of you who are new, welcome. Our water coolers, for those of you who are new, happen once a month, and they are our space for us to lean in on different topics, learn from each other, connect with new ambassadors outside of our day-to-day teams. And today marks the first of our series called A Day in the Life of Right-of-Way Agents. Ironically enough, the format of our water cooler will take place of a fireside chat where we'll get a chance to speak with 2 of our ORC peers, Matt Dreher and Chantel Bowers. Welcome. As we put a spotlight on our right-of-way agents, we'll get a chance to learn what right-of-way agents do, what their job is like, and how they impact our clients and the communities that we serve. I do have questions that will get us started on the fireside chat, but if you have questions, feel free to add them to the chat or unmute your mic and ask away. We'll also have some time at the end to ask our right-of-way agents any questions that you have for them. So without further ado, Matt and Chantel, thank you for joining us and giving us a sneak peek behind the scenes. Will you each just briefly introduce yourselves? Where do you work and how long have you been in right-of-way?
Sure. Mike, Matt, if you're okay, I'll go ahead and start. I am currently located in the St. Charles office that's in St. Charles, Missouri. I will have been with ORC for 9 years on July 1st.
Wow, that's incredible. Matt?
Yeah, currently I'm located in southeastern Ohio. Um, I will be with ORC for 6 years in June. Started on the public sector highway side as a junior agent, and the last few years I've actually worked on the utility side for ORC. So,
Fantastic. Thank you both for sharing. So I know this might sound like a simple question, but we can start here, I think. In general, what do right-of-way agents do? Matt, can you kick us off?
yeah, so really we're kind of a middle ground between our client and our landowners. Our job is to kind of take the concerns of the landowner, bring them to our client, and try to basically come up with a middle ground where we can come to an agreement, whether it's a right of way, whether we're purchasing property. Um, we're kind of the liaison, I guess, that kind of takes both sides to come up with a happy ground. So, um, yep, that's kind of what we do. We do a lot of different things, but really our main goal is negotiating with landowners, listening, taking their concerns, and just trying to make everyone happy at the end of the day. So
Thank you. Chantel, in your words, what does a right-of-way agent do?
Pretty much same as what Matt said. We are the in between person between the client and the property owner. In my field, I also not just purchase the property, I also work in relocation. So we're responsible for helping with the relocation of property owners when there are total takes involved. This could be residential or business. So we are the main contact for the property owner and our clients.
That's awesome. Thank you. What experience and qualifications are required for your role, Chantel?
Um, what a good experience that would be a qualification would be to have some type of background in real estate and also any type of background that would you have that you would have did negotiating, such as sales positions, auto sales, things of that sort would be a great background to have to go into the right of way position.
So I heard sales positions, real estate, negotiating type of skills. Awesome.
Correct.
Thank you. What about you, Matt? What do you think?
yeah, I agree with Chantel on that. Right now what I do in Ohio for the utility side, one of our requirements to do work for AEP is to have an Ohio real estate license. Um, another good qualification would be to have your notary. That way you can acknowledge signatures on legal documents and stuff like that. And back to Chantel's points, anything in sales or negotiations is going to be a huge plus because that's ultimately kind of what we're doing. We're selling the client's project to these landowners. So.
Yeah, so notary comes in handy then for you, Matt. Does that for you as well, Chantel?
Yes, it does.
Awesome. Thank you. So, how did you get to where you are today? Like, what inspired you to start a career as a right-of-way agent? Chantel first.
Well, actually, prior to working or working for ORC or with ORC, I had no little to no knowledge of the right of way agent position. I started off by working with a consulting firm, and we were hired on as a subcontractor for the airport buyout here in St. Louis, Missouri, and that really was my first uh, knowledge of what a right of way agent does.
Wow. Well, that really got you into a different path, huh?
It did. And once I got into it, I enjoyed it. And that's what made me pursue to work for ORC full time as a right of way agent.
Thank you. Matt, how did you get to where you are today? What inspired you?
So I actually majored in land and energy management in college. So I was kind of familiar with the right-of-way industry, kind of coming out of school. Um, so I always knew that I wanted to do something in real estate. Didn't know if I wanted to, do oil and gas or electric right away or, selling houses. But, um, you know, basically right out of school, I applied for ORC and got my foot in the door with them, and haven't looked back since. It's been an awesome 6 years so far, and I've enjoyed every year, and I'm looking forward to more years with them. So.
That's awesome. Thank you both for sharing about that. I think it's always helpful for those who aspire to be right-of-way agents or just want to learn more about the role in general to learn how you got to where you are today. And both of you have lots of experience that we can learn from. So switching gears here, in terms of what it's like to be a right-of-way agent, I'm curious, what does a typical workday or week look like for you? Matt, can you share first?
Yeah. So every day is different for me. My day can change if I get a phone call, I could be packing my computer up and hitting the road. So that's one thing that I do enjoy about my job every day, is something new. Some days I'm going to be in the field all day working with landowners. I could be working with construction contractors. Other days it's a little bit more relaxed where I can kind of catch up on some housekeeping items, emails, project calls, and things like that. But as a right-of-way agent, it's a very diverse position, and you really don't have, I would say, a set schedule. Um, I do my best to try and set up appointments a day or so ahead. But after this water cooler, I could get a phone call, and I could be hitting the road. So it's always something new. It's always something different, and yeah, it's definitely I like the change up. So it's cool.
Sounds like if you are someone who likes to have a dynamic environment, likes to have a different type of day every day, then this is a good, and it's a type of good role for you, right? Chantel, what does a typical workday look like for you or a week?
It would depends on what phase of the project that we're currently working on, what phase it's in. A typical day could consist of doing paperwork in the office, preparing deeds, preparing offers, or reviewing plans. Or it could be going out to meet with the property owners, or looking at potential replacements, taking photos. So it just depends on what phase of the project that we're in, or it could be me playing private investigator, trying to find out contact information of the different property owners.
So you're wearing different hats, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. You talked a little bit about the day looking a little different each day of the week. So I'm just curious, how do you balance your personal and your professional life? Chantel?
I just have to prioritize what on this day, what's going to happen. We do know sometimes that professional and personal lives can intertwine, but I try to keep a schedule which kind of balance them both out.
Awesome. Matt?
Yeah, I agree with Chantel on that. You know, right now in my life, I don't have any kids or anything, so I can be pretty flexible with work, and I try to put work first and make myself available. No matter what the circumstances, whether I need to meet with a landowner at 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening because that's the only time they can meet. I need to make sure that I can make myself available for that. Whether that's rescheduling a doctor's appointment or waiting to go to dinner till after that. So it's just a game of balance and you know categorizing and prioritizing what you have on your plate. So
Awesome. Thank you. So, getting a little more detailed, what are the different jobs or tasks that take up most of your time, let's say in a typical day? And I know a typical day is not really a typical day, but if you can kind of generalize for us, what are those different tasks? Chantel.
It would consist of making phone calls out to the property owners, setting up appointments, um, talking with the client, preparing the offer document, reviewing different plans. That's typically what a day would look like for me.
Matt, the different
Yeah,
jobs.
there's all kinds of tasks. You know, as right away agents, we're kind of have our hands in everywhere. You know, whether it's helping out with title, document prep, you know, meeting with landowners, making phone calls, attending, you know, project status update meetings, you know, speaking directly with the client. You know, we kind of are all over the place. I know there's a lot of working parts at ORC, and right away agents kind of touch each little area just a little bit. So, all kinds of tasks every day. So.
Would you guys say that the tasks that you do or incorporate in your day depend on the type of projects that you're working on?
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. So just curious now, what are some best practices that you can share with other right-of-way agents?
One of the most important skills as a right-of-way agent would be to listen. You have to listen to both what the needs of the client is and also what the property owner it needs to. So I would think that listening is one of the best skills that you would need to have for this position.
Yeah, and we have a question in the chat box, but before I get to it, I just want to ask you, Chantel, how did you learn to listen so well?
I have been in the public sector for many, many years, even outside of real estate. And each person, they just want to be heard. So you have to just listen, and that you can kind of fill out a property owner how they are just by listening to what is currently going on in their life. And that kind of gives you the uh, what you need to be able to communicate with them effectively.
That's awesome. Thank you. Matt, what are some best practices that you can share with other right-of-way agents?
Yeah, I mean, listening is definitely number one. You know, listening to what the client's, you know, willing to do, you know, what they're trying to accomplish. And I guess kind of off of listening is just taking good mental notes. You know, there's a lot of details that you want to remember when working with property owners, you know, especially on at least the utility side for me, you know, certain trees that they want to stay or they want trimmed or you know, I want this type of gravel or this type of grass seed. You know, there's a lot of things that you want to, you know, make sure that you take good notes for. And yeah, I think listening is definitely the number one thing that I could suggest to any right of way agent.
So it sounds like listening, effective communication, attention to detail, they're all kind of wrapped into this, into your worlds every day.
Yes.
Yeah. We had the question, how much title curative do you do? And Daryl shared not a lot. And if you have any other responses around that question, you can share that.
Yeah.
I think it depends on the project really. You know, I've been heavily involved in title, and then there's other, you know, projects I do where title's completely complete and I don't touch it. So
Hmm.
just kind of varies from project to project, at least for me.
What about you, Chantel?
Yeah,
Same?
in our office, we don't do much with the title work outside of we normally outsource it and review it. We would review it on the project to make sure there's no red flags or anything. But as far as preparing, searching, we don't do that much in our office.
Awesome. There's one comment in the chat that Jordan Home presented. Best practices also include don't be afraid to say you need to look into one of their questions. Don't provide an answer you aren't certain of. So I'm sure you both can relate to that. And when you're out in the field talking to landowners and they ask a question and you don't have the answer, or a client asks a question and you don't have the answer, can you both share an experience that maybe that has happened with you and you've been able to say, I don't have the answer, I'll come back to you?
That kind of happens like on a regular basis, you know, with each client, with each property owner. They have questions that you won't have the answer to, and that is always the response. I don't have the answer for you yet, but I will check into it and get back with you. So you have those questions that come up all the time that you won't know the answer to.
Yeah, why is that important? Like, why is it so important to say, I'll come back to you with the answer?
Because you never want to give a property owner misinformation.
Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely want to be, as upfront and truthful as possible. I think that was a great comment from Jordan. You never want to say something and then, the project takes place and it doesn't happen and then there's a dispute later down the road. So, yeah, definitely be as truthful and, factual as you can up front. So if that's, a matter of going back to the client and verifying, a question that you don't have the answer to, then it definitely is worth it instead of creating a conflict or a problem later down the road. So.
Yeah, all about trust, right? Creating that trust. So, do you enjoy your job? What do you enjoy the most? Matt, we'll start with you.
Yes, I definitely enjoy my job. I just love the flexibility and like we talked about earlier, is every day something new. I've met crazy amount of people. I've made a lot of good relationships through my job. Made a lot of people happy. I enjoy everything I do. I like starting at the beginning of a project and then, going through the project life cycle and seeing it when it's complete. But I definitely enjoy the flexibility and diversity that a right-of-way agent job brings. So,
That's awesome. Thank you, Matt. Now, Chantel, sounds like you enjoy your job as well, but what do you enjoy the most?
I also enjoy the flexibility, and I enjoy meeting the interesting people that you meet while working in this position. So that's my most important thing, is meeting the new people and building relationships.
Speaking of interesting people, I'm curious if, like, what's the most unique experience that you've ever had as a right-of-way agent?
For
Chantel.
me, for me, it was meeting with a property owner that they were actually hoarders, and to go with that process to, after seeing things on TV about them, and to know that it really is an illness, and how you have to only deal with the emotional side of it as well as the professional side of it.
That's so interesting. What about you, Matt?
I've met a lot of interesting people in my job. Probably the most unique. I think a lot of people have seen the Netflix series Tiger King. Kind of met a real life Tiger King. He had a lot of exotic animals. Specifically on the job we were doing, he actually had full blood wolves underneath of one of the power lines we were rebuilding. So I had to work with that property owner to relocate some exotic animals. It was definitely an experience. Seeing animals like that up close and in person. So yeah, it was interesting and yeah, it was fun.
Wow, those are really unique stories, and I don't think that you'll ever be able to replicate that. Definitely is a once in a lifetime experience. How does your job impact the communities that you work in? Matt, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so me being on the utility side now, really the main objective for a lot of projects we do is to improve the reliability of electric services, whether it's electric or gas or any utility for that fact. our job is to rebuild and build these utilities to make sure that people can enjoy those utilities at their house and have the lights turn on when they flip the switch type of deal. So that's kind of what we do on the utility side. So
Well, that really matters for sure.
yeah.
What about you, Chantel?
I would say we help with the continued growth of infrastructure, such as the roadway projects, sidewalk projects, and we have a lot of sidewalk projects currently. And I believe this may be because everyone is trying to get fit, and we need to ensure the safety of the community while they are trying to get fit.
Wow, that's an interesting take and thoughts behind how health, well-being intersects with the right-of-way world. I would have never thought of it that way. We have a question from Daniel. How many times have you missed eating meals on the job?
When traveling, I know sometimes I get from my family, like when I'm in the office and when I'm traveling. Do you ever eat? Sometimes it's just one meal a day.
Oh no, we got to change that.
Hey, I never
You
skip
get
a
so
meal.
focused.
I'm eating every day.
You
I'm
are
never
every
missing
day.
meals. I make time for food.
Oh goodness, that's awesome. I think someone else chatted in there that they eat every day as well. Brian said that. So you're not alone, Matt. Chantal, we'll get you up to speed on that. So Janelle says snacks are an agent's best friend. Um, how does your job contribute to the cause of the organization? So kind of taking it from community to organization. Chantal.
I think we were able to, as far as some of the fundamentals we have, we're able to create win-win situations for for both the clients and the property owners, and that is by being truthful and practicing the values that ORC has put in place for its employees.
Awesome. So you kind of live those values every day by nature.
You do, and sometimes you don't even know how many of them you may cover all 25 of them in one day.
Matt, what about you? How does your job contribute to the cause of the organization, at least from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, going off of Chantel there, we're just one of the many moving parts at ORC. We again, I kind of look at myself as a middleman trying to make both the client and the landowner happy. So just like she said, win-wins and just doing what we can to make sure everyone's happy at the end of the day. So
Awesome, thank you. We have a question from Kathy. Can you share how the title requirements differ in the public sector versus the utility sector? If you have knowledge of that.
I can comment on that. At least from what I did on the public sector, I remember the title requirements were a little bit more stringent. I know, like when I was working on the public sector side, I was running title back. Really, I believe ODOT was a 42-year minimum requirement at the time I was working there. And on the utility side, um, sometimes we can get away with just finding a vesting deed or however that landowner obtained ownership. So I guess it depends on the project, but from my experience, the public sector side was a little bit more involved in the title work.
Yeah, and just so everyone knows, we will be doing a water cooler on a day in the life with title agents coming soon. So we can have all of those questions around title for them as well, and they'll be able to help us out too. Any other questions for the two here? For Matt or Chantel? All right. Well, while you guys are thinking, maybe chatting in the team chat, my last question for you both is what advice would you give to those who aspire to be a right-of-way agent? And Chantel, start with you.
I would keep an open mind, be very flexible, and have great listening and communication skills.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of things you can do if you're not currently a right-of-way agent and you're thinking about becoming one. I think IRWA offers some great courses to familiarize yourself with legal terms, legal documents, things like that. Know your, whatever state you plan on working in, know their kind of their general real estate laws and practices and requirements. I know every state's different. And yeah, just be confident in yourself, and yeah, I think anyone can be a great right-of-way agent if they want to. So
It's interesting that you bring up confidence, and just from my experience, confidence isn't like right out the gate, right? It's something that builds over time. And when we start a new job or we start a new role, sometimes we can be self-critical because we don't have the confidence in the beginning and something's new. So I'm just curious, based off of your comment here, what both of you have done to gain confidence over time? What has helped you?
Being educated in the field and exerting as much knowledge from the peers, ones that have been in the field longer than I have, and just being open to asking questions on anything that you don't know. That has helped me build my confidence in this field.
So don't be afraid to ask questions.
yeah, I mean, I would always suggest doing your homework before you meet with anyone, knowing how whatever project you're working on is going to impact their property. The more you know, the more questions you can ask from the landowner, the more confident and successful you're going to be in negotiating with them. So I just think doing your homework, doing your research, and you'll do great. So
Thank you. I mean, that's really solid advice and really appreciate you sharing that. We have a couple questions in the chat box. Felipe asks, as a Florida right-of-way agent, I need to protect from the environment like sunblock, long sleeves, hats, bug spray. What do you both deal with when you're out in the field?
Most definitely the sun. And here in Missouri, sometimes you have to, the weather, as far as the cold and snow. And one day it may be 75 degrees here, and next day it's 30. So you just have to be able to adapt to the weather conditions.
Well, I know, Matt, you've dealt with wolves out in the field, but what other items or what other things are you dealing with when you're out in the field?
Um, well, unfortunately, I am not in Florida. I am in Ohio, so it's almost the exact opposite uh, of what he's got going on there. We deal with snow, ice, mud. I mean, really just being diligent, watching your step when you're out in the field, looking, where you're going, and just being smart. But no, we're more like winter jackets and hand warmers and stuff like that than sunscreen. So, but
Felipe, Matt might want to switch places with you for a day or two, sounds like. All right, a couple other questions from Jordan. What are some of the biggest challenges, and how have you been successful in overcoming those challenges? Either of you can start with that.
Coming in, one of my biggest challenges was learning to read the plans because, dealing as a real estate broker, you didn't have much experience with reading construction plans. And the way I overcame that was taking as many classes that were available that taught you about reading plans and asking questions from other agents that had the knowledge of reading plans and keeping notes and just trying to learn as much about it as I could because that was one of my weakest points with coming into this field.
These plans, it can be complicated, and there's all types of them. So, what about you, Matt?
um, there's been a lot of challenges there's always, it seems like, you know, not difficult, but you got to work a little bit more to sometimes, you know, get what you want out of a landowner. So, I mean, for me, what I've noticed is you're not always going to meet with somebody and get, you know, a signature or an agreement the first time you meet with them. You got to take your time, and just really, you know, go back to the client, see what they're willing to do, see what the landowner is willing to accept or willing to, you know, give up, or vice versa, to find that middle ground. So it's just really been sitting back, taking your time, and making sure that you do it right is kind of what most of my challenges have been. So
Thank you. Looking back on your career, what is some of the best advice you've received from a peer or mentor? Like how did you leverage that advice? This is another question in the chat. Some of the best advice you've received from a peer or mentor.
I guess for me, when I kind of first came on at ORC, you know, my manager at the time, she kind of always was reiterating to me to stay up to date on, you know, my education, any classes that I could take, any courses, certifications, qualifications, anything that I could do to basically be, you know, at the top. Is kind of what I gained from her, and that's kind of what I you know, try to do now. Any way I can better my real estate knowledge, I'm taking advantage of, or taking courses, and you know, just trying to stay up to date and current with the world of real estate. So
Is that because it's always changing?
it is changing, and there's always new laws and revisions and stuff like that. That it's definitely nice to know. So.
Yeah, you're still using that advice today, so that's awesome. Chantel, what about you?
That when you encounter the property owners that you feel may be difficult, don't take any of it personal, because a lot of them are just don't know, don't really have knowledge of what the project is, and their first instinct is that you are trying to take their property. So you have to make the uh, you know, give them as much knowledge about the project as possible, and just don't take it personally, and you should be fine with it.
That's interesting. You said their first thought when you come to them is that you're taking their property. So having that compassion and understanding and empathy for the position that they're in goes a long way, it sounds.
It does, it does. A lot
Yeah.
of times when I meet with a person, they want to talk about other things that's not related to the project. And by you listening to them and kind of even telling them you understand what they are going through, that kind of breaks the ice for them, and it opens up, and you end up being a lot nicer than what a person you thought may be difficult actually ends up being a very nice person.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're assuming positive intentions when you're walking into those situations. So that's awesome, and it helps. So another question we have from Kathy is, what do you do to be safe when you meet with a property owner? And then Daniel said, right, sometimes you meet with people and you're all alone. So that's a good question. What do you do?
Typically, when we have these projects, we know what area they are going to be in and what the dynamics of that area are. So we sometimes go in pairs.
Okay. So you have a buddy.
Yes.
Yeah, I always communicate with, you know, my project manager or other agents on the project, let them know where I'm going, what time I'm meeting with them. And then, you know, with the world today, I like to meet people outside, weather dependent, but anytime I can meet with somebody outside, I try to just meet them outside. And you know, you're protecting yourself from going in a dark house that you've never been into, or and also, you know, with everything as far as, you know, COVID and stuff like that, it's just safer all around. So
Safety is important. Thank you for sharing. So a question from Dolores. Initially, or maybe it's a comment, initially ORC agents met with owners and tenants in pairs or teams to get a gauge of the displacee's demeanor. And then that set the stage for communication for one-on-one meetings. So that's a tip from Dolores, who's been in the industry for such a long time. So thank you, Dolores, for sharing your wisdom. Brian also suggested some advice is that you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so do twice the amount of listening as we do talking. Right in line with what we're talking about. And then Felipe also said, it's interesting to hear how your roles as right-of-way agents are kind of similar throughout the whole country. And then Rhonda also shared, make sure you add the address to your calendar so everyone can see, that way everyone knows where you are. That's interesting. That's a really cool tip. Thank you, Rhonda. That's really, really awesome. Anyone else have questions? These have been some amazing questions. You feel free to unmute your mic as well if you don't want to drop it in the chat box. But I just want to say thank you, Matt and Chantal, for helping us better understand what it looks like to be a right-of-way agent at ORC. You guys did a fantastic job. I agree, Rhonda, with you that we were able to get those insights. You're able to share some of your advice and give us a kind of a picture as to how you got where you are today. So I'll just open it up one more time. If anyone has any last questions for these amazing right-of-way agents, feel free to do it now. And if they have any questions, Chantel, Matt, can they chat you on Teams?
Sure.
Is that okay? I'm getting your permission.
Yes, sure.
All right, so if you do have questions that are maybe a little bit more specific, feel free to reach out to Matt, Chantel on Teams and drop them a note. Again, thank you so much for everyone who asked the questions, who got really curious, who leaned in and learned a little bit more about what it's like to be a right-of-way agent. Our next water cooler is continuing on this series of A Day in the Life of, and it will be on title agents, and that will be in April. So stay tuned for that calendar invite. Everyone have a good rest of your week, and thank you so much.
Thanks, Keisha.
Thank you.
Thank you.